Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Spark Stories. Today we'll hear from Nate Evans. He is the founder of Woodworking with a Purpose, which makes and donates desks and furniture to families in need. When many schools moved online during the pandemic, Nate set a goal to build 2,020 free desks for families in the community during the 2020-2021 school year. His organization surpassed that goal and completed 2,143 desks before June of 2021. In May of this year, Woodworking with a Purpose began building hope chests for foster kids in Iowa. He is a teacher and married father of four living in Ankeny, Iowa, and he's also a published author, and his book, A Weight Lifted, is available at the Des Moines Public Library. So thank you so much for being with us today, Nate.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Can you tell me more about Woodworking with a Purpose and that organization?
Yeah, it was a passion of mine to help kids anyway. I've been a teacher for all of my career, really. And this fall, really felt led, following my faith, that to step out on faith and do something small at least. And it started that first weekend with 13 desks. And before we knew it, I'd asked for help on Facebook and put my Venmo out there. And before we knew it, we had enough to build a couple of hundred. And then I had surgery right before Thanksgiving on my elbow. Had a little problem with an elbow, and all of a sudden, people were just like, "How can we help you? How can we help you?" And it just, before I knew it, blew up into something huge. So
Right. You've actually gotten a lot of national media attention for this project, right?
that's kind of cool. But yeah, it gives me a chance to share my story, my faith, and what we've been doing here, and inspiring other people to do something similar in their own neighborhood.
Um, so do you recall a specific experience which inspired this initiative, or just being involved in the community in general? What's kind of your spark for being involved and giving back your time to the community?
Honestly, I was driving down the road one night heading to a men's group that I'm a part of, and something was on the radio about woodworkers somewhere doing something similar, and just felt inside like, this is something I can do. This is something I can do, and because I have a small little woodworking business, side business, and I asked the guys at the men's group, "What do you guys think about this idea?" And surprising to me, they all were, "How can we help you? How can we help you?" And then I asked an online, a little DIY group that I'm in online, that's sponsored through Craig Tools. And all of a sudden, I had people from all over the country saying, "How can we help you do this? How can?" And people were excited to help a teacher, and I think that was the kind of the calling, or the find the right word, the catch that made this a big deal for a lot of people. Is like, wow, this, he's not just a dad, he's not just, a father or whatever, a business owner, he's a teacher and taking the time to do that. So and then just managing my school life and my home life and a charity to help as many people as we could. It's been crazy, but it's been very rewarding.
Right. So you started out making a lot of these desks yourself, but then the community has pitched in and helped actually build these at various events, right?
Yeah, planned several different events. In the fall, we really didn't plan anything, except we had a couple of groups come to us. We had a group from John Deere. They have a kind of some of the guys there have a woodworking club that they've done some stuff in the past, some volunteerism with like Habitat and some stuff like that. And they came to me, and the exact same week, Ankeny Christian Church came to me, and asked if they could be involved as well. And before we knew it, we had two big events planned in January, and then other groups came to us, and other groups came to us, and it just kept snowballing and got bigger and bigger. Um, so we've made, and we had an event at the iCubs that the iCubs hosted an event. We built 150, in a morning, and we've had a couple of events that we built that many or more. So yeah, the Home Builders Association had a really big event at the end of the school year that when we hit our goal was at that event. We actually, the very last desk we did that day was put us right on 2020, and then we've trickled along since then. But right now we're trying to, with the school year done and summer, and just trying to breathe and refresh more than anything.
Right. So as a teacher, you mentioned that was kind of like one of the amazing parts of this story. Did you teach students online last year, or um,
We
stayed
did
in the
it.
classroom with
We,
in
we did
person?
had to do it all. Um, I was told in August that I would have an online class or block class, so it was a 90-minute class um, every other day, and then I had hybrid in the fall, and then in the spring we went back to full time. And so yeah, pretty much every avenue that you could have in education, we did it all last year.
And so I imagine you saw some of the struggles of some of your students trying to work without any proper equipment at home, right?
Well, at the time we were 1-to-1, so they did have, we were able to do the majority of everything that we needed to do online. So the the resources were there for many students. We did have some that really struggled with like internet service and things like that, and thankfully the district provided help where needed. But the reality is sometimes your internet doesn't work and kid can't be in class, and then I don't see him again for 3 days, or somebody's out of town or whatever and can't get logged in. So it was a weird roller coaster of a year. Yeah.
And then the desks too. I imagine the kids at home maybe not having a desk to put their equipment on and have a stable work location, right?
Right. And I saw, well, and that's actually kind of the thing that was the driving thing for me personally as a teacher, was I was seeing kids sitting on their bed or sitting on the floor. And I had a student that sat at the kitchen table because that was the only place in her apartment that she could sit. And everybody's going by just constantly. And it was distracting for me. It was distracting for her. And I felt really bad, but I'm like, if you just had your own little space in your room, and before you know it, we had quite a few students that I knew personally that ended up getting one. And we didn't put any a stipulation on it or ask for their income or W-2s or anything. We just said, if you need one, you need one. And we had a lot of families that pulled up in really nice cars, and we had people that didn't have a car and we had to deliver it for them. So um, just whatever we could do to help people out.
And so, do you have a new or renewed vision yet? I know you're kind of in a refreshing, like
Kind of a
a
holding.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
With the cost of lumber right now, I just kind of said, okay, guys, we're just going to stop for the summer. And I have a core group of people that have helped me quite a bit. And That's funny I said core because my fiscal sponsor for our charity is Core Foundation, but I do have a group of folks that have all made at least 30, 40 desks themselves, and just coordinated that and got everything prepped and got it handed out kind of thing. And I just told them all, just, hey, we're just going to take a break for right now and just let everybody breathe. But the Hope Chest thing, we were hoping to be a much bigger thing. And we had to stop because lumber prices went through the roof, and I didn't feel right spending $80 for a sheet of plywood. And when people had donated that. So we've kind of waited. We're just going to wait that out. We still have quite a few supplies we have all the hardware that we need to make our goal of 100 of those. But we've just barely got past a dozen, and we got those delivered, and those are getting handed out through Four Oaks and their family services. They do adoption and foster care training and stuff, and happened to know the director of that program and got connected with her, and so we're going to make them more in the fall, but not until lumber prices get more reasonable. But we're also looking at like bookshelves and things like that for kids too. That and being a reading teacher, that's kind of a driving thing. I think it would be a nice little addition to what we've done so far.
Definitely, yes. As a librarian, I think that's a great plan for a future endeavor. So I look forward to seeing that too.
Real-
You recently published, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna just a real simple. I try to keep all of our plans really simple for my own reason. I'm not an expert woodworker. The crazy thing about it is I didn't build. I had never built a single piece of furniture in my life until last summer when I first made something for one of my kids, and then it just snowballed from there. So the woodworking company business that I have, it's more arts and crafts kind of stuff than it was actual furniture. And then all of a sudden we just started making one type of furniture and another type of furniture, and then this opportunity started, and we haven't looked back since. So yeah, just the bookshelves, or I saw this story about the toy cars, the gentleman giving toy cars away to kids and stuff, and I was just really inspired by that. Would be a really fun thing to do, just a little side thing to do. But there are a lot of tools and equipment that I don't have or can't afford right now. So if those opportunities present themselves, then yeah, there are a lot of other projects we can do. I just don't necessarily have the space or equipment for it.
Okay, so again, just excited to see what comes from this woodworking with a purpose and all of the excitement that it's generated in the community. Clearly, there's a need for access to these resources and families. So,
And they're
um, yeah.
very organic. I've never planned a charity before. I didn't set out to have international press covering we were doing, or have a video of what we did that went viral around the world with over 3 million views. I didn't set out for that. I didn't ask for that. I didn't necessarily seek it or anything. It happened because it was meant to happen. And if we can continue to support Central Iowa, or maybe in the future even more kids, that would be great to support families all over. We've had requests from California and the East Coast, somebody in New York, and I'm like, I can't ship you. That's not going to work. I'm not gonna, I can't ship the desk. It's not that type of opportunity. So, but we have had people from all over the country and even down into Mexico and Canada, who have sent us requests for our desk plans because they saw our story and wanted to do what we did. So that was cool.
That's great. Yeah, where did the desk plans actually come from? Was that something you just came up with, or?
It was just a mix of different things that I had worked on over the last summer, and then asked a couple of questions of a few people in that Craig do-it-yourself group, and some real simple ideas, and just mix them all together, and then we just a matter of measurements, and how can we get the biggest bang for our buck. So the desk sizes and stuff have a lot to do with just, if it's an 8 foot board, how much can we get out of an 8 foot board, and how can we save money to do that. So my original plans were all based on how many can I get for as little money as I had to start with. And then it became something where, like, Beiser Lumber started sending us 2x4s, and Leachman Lumber sent us 2x4s, and we got help from our local Home Depot and Lowe's, and so it just, like I said, that whole snowball effect just kept happening.
Right. So you recently published your own novel, A Weight Lifted, and also a children's book. Can you tell us about those books and any other books which have been really influential for you along the way?
Yeah, as a literacy teacher, the curriculum that I have ask us to set an example for students. Like, if you're going to write, then write with them, or if you're going to read with them, kind of thing, which should happen anyway. But a couple of years, it's actually almost 3 years now. We had this brand new curriculum, and we had a unit about writing realistic fiction. And so I'm like, okay, well, here we go. In the very first class, I started making up a story and showed them. I'm like, okay, let's pick a character's name, and let's pick what happens, what's up with his dad, and this and this. And so my students gave me feedback. In the next class, I did the same thing, and we had a different kid's name and different issues. And then third class, we had a different kid. And that night I went home, and it just like, I need to put these together and see what happens. So I took all 3 characters and I changed a couple of things that the kids came up with just to make sure it made sense. And one of the characters became the main character. One of the characters became his best friend, and the other was the school bully. And it just started to come together. And so as the kids were writing the paper that I needed for them to write over a period of about a month or so, I was writing this story. And within the first week or so, I had about 30,000 words. And I couldn't stop writing about it. Couldn't stop thinking about it. I was staying up till 1, 2 in the morning. I just couldn't stop writing it. And found myself in one part of the story. The young man realizes how much other people care about him, and it's a first for him because he's growing up with an alcoholic, very secretive, mean father, and he's never had anyone care. And gets invited to a youth group, and on a Sunday morning he finally realizes just how many people really do care for him. And I found myself in tears. I'm like, oh, my eyes must hurt. And then I read it again, and it kept happening because it was an extremely personal thing for me, and it's not based on a true story. It was just something like, wow, that and just that this just came out of my head kind of thing. So, but yeah, the story is a weight lifted. And the artwork is actually by Keto Young. He is a professional artist and has done comic book. I love comic books. My classroom is full of comic book stuff. And Keto contacted me and said, "Can I do your book cover?" And so, but yeah, the story is a weight lifted. It's based on powerlifting, which I knew nothing about. And it was one of those just kind of a coincidence that one of my students was talking about it at one point, and all of a sudden it became the sport that Daniel gets involved in. And I love fish. I don't have an aquarium, but I think fish are fascinating. And for one reason or another, it's all based on my own experience as far as my environment. Like, I live in Ankeny, and there's a pet store down the road from my house. And my first apartment wasn't necessarily the best apartment, which is where he lives in the story. And he walks to the pet store so he can stare at the fish. And when my kids were little, that's one of their favorite things to do, was go to the pet store and watch all the fish swim around and stuff. So that's where a lot of those ideas came from. And so it's not necessarily a personal story, but like Daniel's grandparents have a farm, and my grandparents have a farm. And so there's a lot of things like that. So, and then the other book that I just published this summer is based on a song that I sing to my students sometimes about those rainy days where you see all the worms, all those big worms crawling all over the place, and you can smell it in the air. And I stand outside and greet kids when they come into school. And one morning this early spring, it was one of those days, and there's just earthworms everywhere. And I started singing "Everything Smells Like Worms," just totally making it up as I go. And our school's social worker was out there with me, and he's laughing at me like, "What are you singing? Where did you, is this on the radio?" And like, "No, I'm making it up as I go," and just laughing about it. And then I told my students about it, and they started singing it. And they're like, you need to turn this into a kid's book. This would be so fun. So just this summer, we just published "Everything Smells Like Worms," and all it is simply the story. The story is simply the song, and it's got little characters in it, and there's just different stages of them fishing, and the worms everywhere. And one of my daughters gave me the idea of, you have to say the end. It's a kid's book. You have to say the end. And one of my daughters was like, "You should say the end in worms." And so all four of the characters are they're all my kids' names and stuff. So it turned out really cool. And I'm really excited about it. But those are now on or your library, the Ankeny Library. So yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes, and get the word out that it's out there, and just trying to, like I said, support my family and share some love with the community. And the A Weight Lifted is all about how we as adults can change a child's life when we actually notice them. Daniel hasn't been noticed. He spent 16 years not being noticed because people are scared of who his dad is, because everybody knows who his dad is. And everybody's intimidated by his dad. And so he's just trying to fly under the radar until something really school bully kind of situation happens, and he stands up for someone else, not himself, but stands up for someone else. And it's a life-changing event for him. And because of what he does, one of the coaches and school counselors, the powerlifting coach, realizes just how strong this kid is, and just cares about him so much that he reaches out to him, and it becomes a life-changing event. and it changes the school culture, it changes the local church's culture, it changes the town, because someone noticed, and when everyone else had written him off because of who his parents were, someone took the time to realize that there was gold in the fire, so to speak, and reached down and helped him.
I'm really excited to get my hands on those because, I mean, it's really great that someone who didn't set out to be an author just sort of got this inspiration and somehow found the time to fit it into their daily life. So I'm really excited to see what you came up with, and
I think,
thanks for sharing those with us.
yeah, I tell my students, we all have a story somewhere, and it may be your story, or it may be just something about you. But I tell them a lot about, we write what we know. And if you look at an author's life, especially realistic fiction, most stories will tend to follow something with their life. So in this case, the story is for people who are from Central Iowa, it's very clearly Ankeny. There's two high schools, and the town was founded by a guy that would just, and all the different things in the story. It's like, it's very clearly something connected here. But a lot of the characters and the names in there are people that are connected to me somehow.
Is there anything else you want to share with listeners today?
I just want to encourage people, especially when it comes to reading or writing, is, if you want to, you got to learn something. Sooner or later, you have to pick up a book. The internet is great, and there's all kinds of things that you can find, but there is something extremely satisfying when you finish that last page of a book and close it, and it's like, yeah, I've read that, or I've learned that. Matter of fact, I was just talking with someone earlier, just a funny little weird random fact that I've learned as a teacher teaching nonfiction books. And it's like, how did you know that? And I'm like, I read a book. It's it was an interesting book, and I read it. Yeah, I know a lot of trivial things really for some folks, but it just, you never know. And I don't read 24/7, but when you do, and you commit to it, so just like writing, when you do it and you commit to it, things happen and you get better and better at it. Same thing with the woodworking. Like I said, I didn't grow up doing woodworking. I grew up around it, so I understood the basics of it. But it wasn't until we moved into the house that we're in now, about 5 years ago this summer, that I had the space and time to do that. And we started Evans Family Woodworking with my oldest daughter when she was in high school. She didn't have a job yet and wanted a way to make money, so we started making some arts and crafts and stuff that people could buy, and that just made its way into where we are now.
That's very inspirational. Thanks for sharing your story today. And I hope everyone in the audience enjoyed hearing your story. Please go ahead and share this with your friends and join us next month to hear from another amazing leader in the Des Moines community. Thank you.